We'd like to invite Lisa Bachman, the Executive Director of the Alabama Holocaust Education Center, to come up and share with us a few words of Torah.
Good morning. When I was young and was preparing for my bat mitzvah, I remember standing in the sanctuary and being awed and feeling very humbled to be on the bima. I have that exact same feeling today, as I'm truly honored to be invited to speak here. I live in the world of Holocaust education. I fully embrace the responsibility that I have to remember, and I carry it very deeply. It's not just remembering what happened, but deciding what we do with what we remember. This week's Torah portion talks about building of the physical sanctuary, which is a space for reflection and prayer and connection. As I was thinking about my remarks for today, my husband suggested that I think about the word sanctuary and the multiple meanings that this word carries. Sanctuary can also mean a refuge, a place of protection when the world around us feels scary or dangerous. But maybe most importantly, sanctuary can be something that we create for each other. And this becomes even more critical when we think about the history and what we share. We often think that history is about dates and facts. It's true, it is. But this morning, I'm going to think a little bit differently, and I'm going to tie our history to remembrance. I'd like us to consider slowing down and taking in our history, to listen, to learn, to wrestle with what makes us feel unsettled. I find that being in a place of feeling unsettled is when I become deeply introspective and I ponder what's important. When we remember unsettling things that happened in our history, it becomes more active, deeply human, and it creates a space where change can happen. In other words, the work of remembrance is not passive, but active and deeply human. When we look at the Holocaust, we're very careful not to compare it to other events. It stands as a singular atrocity in our history, the systematic, state-sponsored ideology of hatred that sought the complete destruction of the Jewish people. The civil rights movement was also a distinct and unique struggle born from centuries of racial injustice and inequality. When we look at both events, we see patterns that mirror similar warning signs, such as scapegoating, fear-based rhetoric, legal discrimination, and the normalization of cruelty. It's in identifying these shared patterns while honoring the uniqueness of each event that our learning can begin. And this is what the Temple Beth-El civil rights experience creates. The focus on tikkun olam, of repairing the world, is the perfect place to start. In many ways, this experience is a sanctuary of memory, where we protect the truth and the stories and ensure that this history is not erased, simplified, or forgotten. The Holocaust is one of the clearest examples in human history of what happens when sanctuary disappears. And there are common threads throughout the history of civil rights. There are distinct differences when it comes to the Holocaust and the civil rights movement. Our stories are not the same. Our histories are not interchangeable, and they should never ever be flattened into one experience. But it's our journeys. Our journeys share something deeply important. There are similarities in the fight for dignity. There are similarities in the fight against dehumanization. There are similarities in the courage it takes to stand up when standing up feels really hard or dangerous. The Holocaust teaches us that human dignity must be preserved, always. The era of slavery and the civil rights movement also teaches us that human dignity must be preserved, always. At their core, both movements can encourage us to ponder this question: who deserves sanctuary? These histories teach us that the suffering of one group never erases the humanity of another, and that pain is not a competition. These histories teach us that we always have choices. Choices about whether we listen, choices about whether we show compassion, about how we act when we know in our hearts that something feels wrong. We know that the Holocaust did not begin with camps, with jokes, with propaganda, silence, or the slow erosion, with the slow erosion of empathy. This lesson is not locked in the past. It's a warning for every generation, because words shape how we see each other. Words can build sanctuary or destroy it. Words can build humanity or strip it away. And when we talk about history here in Birmingham, we see another story, different, distinct, and very deeply rooted here. If we're willing to hold both the similarities and the differences, we can learn how to lift each other up. That's very sacred work. I experienced this personally when I first came to Birmingham. When I arrived here, I knew nothing about the 4 little girls who were killed in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church. Nothing. And when I learned their story, their names, their ages, their lives, I felt something shift inside of me. I realized that if I wanted to truly be a part of this community, that I had a responsibility to learn its history. Not just the parts that were comfortable, not just the parts that made me feel proud, but all of it. Because learning is how we honor people. Learning is how we show respect. Learning is how we build belonging. And learning is how we create sanctuary. I had another moment of learning recently. I had the chance to hear Dick Pizitz speak about how Jewish department store owners here in Birmingham were among the first to change policies during the civil rights movement by hiring Black employees and allowing them to use the same restrooms as white people. They did it not because it was easy, not because it was popular, but because it was right. And that's what moral courage looks like. Small decisions, real risk, human dignity first. And that's what creating sanctuary looks like in the real world. And that brings me to something that I think about often, the idea of labels. We live in a world shaped by assumptions. In seconds, we assign meaning to people based on what we see, which can include their appearance, identity, background. But when labels replace curiosity, they destroy sanctuary and stop us from truly seeing one another. And history shows us the danger of reducing human beings to labels. When we can review our assumptions and look deep inside of ourselves, we gain insight to become aware of what we didn't see before. That's a very powerful place to be. It's the place where we can gain the ability to choose differently. This work can be daunting, and often we immediately jump to phrases like never again. But then what happens is we get easily intimidated or feel overwhelmed, and we give up. So maybe that's not what this is about. I often pose a very simple question to my team. I ask them how they eat an elephant. The answer, 1 bite at a time. In today's Torah portion, we see that it took a long time for the Israelites to build the sanctuary. One beam, one ritual object, one thread at a time. So if we can learn that the work of remembering and creating sanctuary in an effort to repair the world is not simple, it's not perfection, not heroism, and won't happen in one moment, we have a great place to start. If we can show up, listen before we speak, question what we hear, consider our assumptions, we can create sanctuary in our homes, with our friends, in our workplaces, in our communities, in the way we speak to strangers, in the way we protect the vulnerable, in the way that we refuse to let hatred feel normal. And maybe that's what the real lesson of history is about. History is not there to make us feel bad or guilty. History is there to make us responsible. Responsible for how we speak. Responsible for how we treat people. Responsible for what we allow to happen around us. Because in reality, none of us can fix the whole world. But every one of us can make our corner of it a whole lot better. Every one of us can create sanctuary for one person. We can refuse to reduce people to labels. We can refuse to stay silent when cruelty is normalized. And we can refuse to forget where hatred can lead. And we can remember something powerful. Our hearts have capacity to hold love for many things at once, even things in conflict, even stories that are different from our own. Sanctuaries are built for the moments when humanity needs grounding, when we need reflection, comfort, and when we need to remember who we are meant to be to ourselves and to one another. If we can learn from the past, truly learn, then memory can become sanctuary, sanctuary can become action, action can become repair, and repair can become hope. And with hope, we can accomplish anything. Thank you.
Kol hakavod, Lisa, and thank you for sharing those words with us this morning.